For 20 years, one door in our house stayed locked. My mother had the only key. She wore it on a thin silver chain around her neck. She never took it off, not in the shower, not in bed, not even when she was sick with fever. The little key rested against her chest, day and night, year after year. The door was at the end of the upstairs hall. It was a plain white door, just like all the other doors in the house. But this one was always closed, always locked, and nobody was allowed inside. I grew up in that house. I passed that door every single day. I passed it on my way to school. I passed it on my way to bed. I passed it 1,000 times, 10,000 times, and every time I wondered what was behind it. When I was small, I asked my mother about the room. "What is in there, Mummy?" I said. I was maybe 5 years old. I pointed at the white door. My mother's face changed. It went pale and still. She knelt down in front of me and held my shoulders. "That room is not for you, Alice," she said softly. "You must never go in there. Promise me." "But why?" I said. "Promise me," she said again. Her voice was quiet, but her eyes were very serious. "Promise me you will never try to open that door." "I promise," I said, and I kept my promise. For 20 years, I kept it, but I never stopped wondering. My name is Alice. I am 25 years old now. I grew up in a small house at the edge of a small town. It was just my mother and me. My father was not there. When I asked about him, my mother said he had left when I was a baby. She said he was not a good man. She said we did not need him. And so I stopped asking him about my father too. There were two subjects my mother never wanted to talk about. My father was one. The locked room was the other. As I got older, the room became a mystery that lived inside my mind. At night, lying in bed, I would stare at the wall and imagine what was on the other side of that white door. Was it treasure? Was it something dangerous? Was it something sad? Sometimes I heard my mother in there. Late at night, when she thought I was asleep, I would hear the soft click of the lock. I would hear the door open, and then I would hear my mother's footsteps, very quiet, moving around inside the room. Sometimes I heard her crying, not loud crying, just soft, gentle tears, the kind a person cries when they are alone. I would lie in my bed and listen. My heart would ache. I wanted to go to her. I wanted to knock on that door and hold her and ask her what was wrong. But I had made a promise, so I stayed in my bed. And in the morning, my mother would smile at me over breakfast as if nothing had happened. Once, when I was 15, I tried to look through the keyhole. I waited until my mother went to the shops. Then I crept up the stairs and knelt in front of the white door. I pressed my eye to the small keyhole and looked inside, but I could not see much. The curtains were closed and the room was dark. I could see only shapes. A small shape near the wall, maybe a bed, something on the floor, something on a shelf, but nothing clear, nothing that told me the answer. I heard my mother's car in the driveway. I jumped up and ran to my own room, my heart pounding. I never tried the keyhole again, but that night I dreamed of the room. In my dream, the white door was open, and a warm light came from inside, and I could hear the soft sound of a child laughing. When I woke up, the laughing was gone, and there was only the quiet house and the locked door at the end of the hall. I did not understand my own dream, but it stayed with me for a long time. Like a song you cannot forget. The years passed. I grew up. I went to school. I made friends. I fell in love once, and then out of love again. I got a job at the town library. I lived a normal life, and through all of it, the locked room stayed locked. My mother wore the key around her neck, and the mystery stayed a mystery. Then, this spring, my mother got sick. It started with a cough, just a small cough at first, but it did not go away. It got worse. She got tired very easily. She lost weight. Her face became thin and gray. I took her to the doctor. The doctor did some tests, and then the doctor gave us the news. My mother was very ill. The illness was in her lungs, and it was serious. The doctor spoke gently, but the words were hard. There was not much time, maybe a few months, maybe less. I sat in the doctor's office and held my mother's hand. I did not cry. I did not want to cry in front of her. But inside, my heart was breaking into small pieces. My mother was calm. She looked at the doctor and she nodded slowly, as if she had already known. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for telling me the truth." We drove home in silence. My mother looked out of the car window at the passing trees. Her hand rested on her chest, on the small silver key. That night, I made her soup. She could only eat a little. I helped her up the stairs and into her bed. I sat beside her until she fell asleep. The weeks that followed were slow and quiet. My mother grew weaker. She spent most of her days in bed now. I took time off from the library to care for her. I made her tea. I read to her. I brushed her hair. I did everything I could to make her comfortable. And through all of it, she still wore the key. One evening in early summer, the light was golden and soft. It came through the bedroom window and fell across my mother's bed. She was awake, sitting up against her pillows. She looked very small and very tired, but her eyes were clear. "Alice," she said, "come and sit with me." I sat on the edge of the bed and took her hand. "There is something I need to tell you," she said. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." My heart began to beat faster. She reached up to her neck. Her thin fingers found the silver chain, and slowly, carefully, she lifted it over her head. For the first time in 20 years, the key left her body. She held it out to me. It rested in her open palm, small and silver, and warm from her skin. "Take it," she said. My hands were shaking. I did not move. "Take it, Alice," she said again. "It is time you knew. The room at the end of the hall. It is time you opened it." Slowly, I reached out. I took the key from her hand. It was so light, such a small thing, and yet it had held such a big secret for so long. "What is in there?" I whispered. It was the same question I had asked when I was 5 years old. My mother looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "Go and see," she said, "and then come back to me, and I will tell you everything. I will tell you the whole story. I promise. But first, you must see it with your own eyes." I stood up. My legs felt weak. I walked out of my mother's bedroom and into the hall. The white door stood at the end, the same as always. But now, everything was different. Now I held the key. I walked toward the door slowly. Each step felt very long. My heart was pounding in my chest. 20 years of wondering, 20 years of questions. And now, finally, the answer was on the other side of this door. I stopped in front of it. I put the key into the lock. My hand was trembling so much that I almost dropped it. I turned the key. The lock clicked. A soft, small sound. The same sound I had heard so many nights from my bed. I pushed the door open. The room was dim. The curtains were closed, just as they had always been. I reached inside and found the light switch. I turned it on, and then I saw it was a child's bedroom, a boy's bedroom. There was a small bed against the wall, with a blue blanket neatly folded. There was a wooden shelf with toys on it, little cars, a wooden train, a worn brown teddy bear with one missing eye. There were books on a low table, picture books, the kind you read to a small child. On the walls were drawings, children's drawings in crayon, a house with a red roof, a yellow sun, a family of 3 standing in a row, holding hands, a mother, a father, and a small boy. Everything was clean. There was no dust anywhere. The room had been cared for, cleaned, kept perfect for years and years. Someone had loved this room. Someone had kept it exactly as it was. I stepped inside slowly. My eyes moved across everything. The little clothes hanging in the small wardrobe, the tiny shoes by the bed, a blue cap on a hook, and then I saw the photographs. On the shelf, in a silver frame, was a picture of a little boy. He was maybe 6 years old. He had brown hair and a big, happy smile. He was missing one of his front teeth. He was laughing at the camera, his eyes bright and full of joy. I picked up the frame. I stared at the boy's face, and something strange happened inside me, something I could not explain, because I knew that face. Somehow, deep inside, I knew it. I looked at the other photos. The boy on a beach, building a sandcastle. The boy on his swing, flying high. The boy blowing out candles on a birthday cake. And in one photo, the boy was holding a baby, a tiny baby wrapped in a pink blanket. He was looking down at the baby with a gentle smile, so careful, so proud. I turned the photo over. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, were the words, "Thomas holding baby Alice. She is 3 days old." I could not breathe. Baby Alice. That was me. The baby in the pink blanket was me, and the boy holding me. The boy with the missing tooth and the bright, happy eyes. His name was Thomas. I had a brother. I stood in the middle of that small, silent room, holding the photograph, and my whole world turned upside down. All my life, it had been just my mother and me. All my life, I had believed I was an only child. And now I was standing in the bedroom of a brother I never knew I had. I do not know how long I stood there. Time seemed to stop. Finally, with the photograph in my hand, I walked slowly back to my mother's room. She was waiting for me. She was sitting up in her bed, watching the door. When she saw my face, she knew that I had understood. I sat down beside her. I held up the photograph. "I have a brother," I said. My voice was very quiet. I had a brother. His name is Thomas. "Yes," my mother said. Tears were running down her face. "You had a brother. You have a brother. What happened to him?" I asked. "Did he die? Is that why the room is locked? Is that why you cried at night?" My mother closed her eyes, and then she began to tell me the story she had carried alone for 20 years. "Thomas was my first child," she said. "He was born 5 years before you. He was the happiest little boy, always laughing, always running. He filled the whole house with light. Your father and I loved him more than anything in the world." "My father," I said. "You said he left when I was a baby." "I need to tell you the truth now," my mother said. "The whole truth, even the parts that are hard." She took a deep breath. "Your father was not a good man, Alice. In the beginning, he seemed kind, charming, but over time, he changed. He drank. He had a terrible temper. He would shout. Sometimes he did more than shout. I was afraid of him, but I stayed because I did not know what else to do, and because of the children." I held her hand tightly. "When you were born," she said, "things got worse. Your father lost his job. He drank more. He grew angry all the time. I knew I had to leave him. for your safety, for Thomas's safety, for mine. So one day, when you were just a few weeks old, I took you and Thomas, and we left. We came here, to this house. It belonged to my aunt. She let us stay. Your father was furious, she went on. He came here many times. He shouted. He banged on the door. He said I had stolen his children. The police came more than once. Finally, a court said that the children would live with me. But your father was allowed to see Thomas on weekends. That was the law. I had to let him. My mother's hands were shaking now. I did not want to let Thomas go with him, she said. Every weekend, my heart was full of fear. But the court said I must. So every Saturday, your father came and took Thomas for the day. And every Sunday evening, he brought him back. She stopped. She looked at me with eyes full of pain. Until one weekend, she said, he did not bring him back. The room went very still. It was a cold Saturday in November, my mother said. Your father came to collect Thomas as usual. Thomas was 7 years old. He was wearing his blue cap. He waved at me from the car window as they drove away. He was smiling. That was the last time I saw my son. Tears were falling from my eyes now too. Sunday evening came, and they did not return, she said. I waited. I called your father's phone. No answer. I called his home. No answer. I called the police. They said maybe he was just late. But I knew. A mother knows. Something was very wrong. What happened? I whispered. Your father had taken Thomas and disappeared, my mother said. He had planned it. He had emptied his bank account. He had packed his things. He took Thomas and he left the country. He went somewhere far away and he did not tell anyone where. I could not believe what I was hearing. The police searched, my mother continued, for months, for years. But your father had been clever. He used false names. He kept moving. He did not want to be found. And a small boy in a big world is very hard to find. The years passed, and there was no news, no sign, nothing. My Thomas was simply gone. That is why you kept the room, I said softly. You were waiting for him. Yes, my mother said. I could not bear to change anything. I kept his room exactly as it was on the day he left. His toys, his clothes, his bed. I cleaned it every week. I kept it ready because I always believed in my heart that one day he would come home. And when he did, I wanted his room to be waiting for him, exactly as he remembered it. My mother was crying openly now. 20 years of tears. I never told you, she said, because I did not want you to grow up in sadness. I did not want you to carry this pain. I wanted you to have a happy childhood. So I locked the door, and I locked away the story, and I carried it alone. I am sorry, Alice. I am so sorry I never told you. You deserve to know your brother. I put my arms around my mother, and we held each other, and we cried together for a long time. That night, I could not sleep. My mind was full of Thomas, the brother I never knew, the boy with the missing tooth who had held me when I was 3 days old. I lay awake, and a question grew inside me, bigger and bigger, until I could not ignore it. Where was he now? If my father had taken him abroad, then Thomas was alive somewhere. He would be 27 years old now, a grown man. Did he remember us? Did he remember his mother? Did he even know he had a sister? The next morning, I went back into the room. This time, I looked carefully at everything, and in the bottom of the wardrobe, hidden under a folded blanket, I found a wooden box. Inside the box were papers, many papers, and I realized with a shock that my mother had never truly stopped searching. There were letters to lawyers. There were reports from private investigators. There were copies of missing person notices printed in different languages. There were maps with circles drawn on them. My mother had spent 20 years and probably every penny she could spare trying to find her son. Most of the reports ended the same way. No trace found. The trail goes cold. We are sorry. But then, near the top of the pile, I found something newer. A report dated only 2 years ago. And this one was different. The investigator had found something. A man matching my father's description had died 3 years ago in a city far across the sea. And after his death, records had become easier to access. The investigator had found a name. A young man, 25 years old at the time, living in that same city. A young man who had entered the country as a child 20 years earlier with a man using a false name. The young man now went by a different name, but the investigator believed, with strong reason, that he was Thomas. There was an address. My hands shook as I read it. My father was dead, and my brother, it seemed, was alive, and someone had found where he lived. I took the report to my mother. "You found him," I said. 2 years ago. You found where Thomas lives. Why did you not go to him?" My mother looked at the paper in my hands, and her face was full of sorrow. "I was afraid," she said. "By then, I was already becoming ill, and I was afraid of what I might find. What if he did not remember me? What if your father had told him lies? What if he hated me? What if I traveled all that way and knocked on his door, and he turned me away?" She shook her head. I did not think my heart could survive it, so I kept the paper, and I did nothing, and I have regretted it every single day. I took my mother's hands in mine. "Then I will go," I said. She looked up at me. "I will go and find him," I said. "I will find Thomas, and I will bring him home to you. I promise." My mother started to cry again, but this time there was something else in her face, something I had not seen in a long time. Hope. It took me 2 weeks to arrange everything. I got a passport. I bought a plane ticket with the little money I had saved. I found a neighbor, kind Mrs. Bell from next door, who agreed to stay with my mother while I was away. And then, on a bright morning in July, I got on a plane and flew across the sea, carrying an old photograph and an address, written on a folded piece of paper. The city was big and loud and full of strangers. Tall gray buildings rose on every side. Cars filled the streets. People hurried past me, speaking words I did not understand. I did not speak the language well. I felt small and lost. I had never been so far from home in all my life. That first night, I could not sleep. I lay in a small, cheap hotel room and listened to the strange sounds of the city outside. I took out the photograph of Thomas and held it in my hands. I was so close now, just a few streets away, maybe. My brother was sleeping, and in the morning, I would knock on his door. The thought filled me with hope and terror at the same time. What if he slammed the door in my face? What if he did not believe me? What if my father had poisoned his mind so deeply that he wanted nothing to do with us? I had crossed the whole world on the strength of a single hope, and I did not know if that hope would break my heart. But I had come too far to turn back now. In the morning, I took a taxi to the address. It was a tall building on a busy street. I stood outside for a long time, looking up at the windows, my heart hammering in my chest. Somewhere up there, maybe, was my brother, the brother I had crossed the world to find. I went inside. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. I found the door, number 9. I stood in front of it, and suddenly I was terrified. What would I say? How do you tell a stranger that he is your brother? How do you undo 20 years of lies in a single moment? I lifted my hand and I knocked. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then I heard footsteps inside. The door opened. A young man stood in front of me. He was tall, with brown hair. He looked at me with a puzzled expression, waiting for me to speak. And I looked at his face, and my heart stopped. Because I knew that face, the face from the photographs, older now, a grown man, but the same eyes, the same smile lines. And when he spoke, saying a word I did not understand in his language, I saw that he was missing a small tooth on the side, where a childhood gap had never quite closed. It was him. It was Thomas. Thomas? I said. He went still. His puzzled expression changed. His eyes grew wide. He had not heard that name, his real name, in a very long time. Who are you? He said, in careful English. How do you know that name? My eyes were full of tears. I could hardly speak. I reached into my bag, and I took out the old photograph, the one of a little boy holding a baby in a pink blanket. I held it up so he could see. This is you, I said. You are Thomas, and this baby is me. I am Alice. I am your sister. He took the photograph with trembling hands. He stared at it. He looked at the little boy and the baby, and slowly something moved across his face. A memory, waking up after a long sleep. I had a sister, he said quietly, as if speaking to himself. I always had a feeling. Something was missing, but my father told me. He stopped. His voice broke. My father told me my mother did not want us. He said she gave us away. He said she never loved us. That is not true, I said. My voice was fierce now. That is a lie. Our mother loved you every single day. She never stopped looking for you. Not for one day in 20 years. She kept your room exactly as you left it. Your toys, your bed, your blue cap. She waited for you, Thomas. She is waiting for you, right now. Thomas began to cry. This tall, grown man stood in his doorway and cried like the little boy he had once been. She is alive, he said. My mother is alive? Yes, I said. But Thomas, she is very ill. She does not have long. I came to find you. I came to bring you home. Please, please come and see her before it is too late. He did not hesitate, not for a moment. Yes, he said. Yes, take me to her. Take me home. We flew back together the very next day. On the plane, we talked and talked. 20 years of life poured out between two strangers who were not strangers at all. I told him about our mother, about the town, about the library where I worked. He told me about his life, about the years of moving from place to place, about a father who grew colder and stranger with each passing year, about the loneliness of a childhood built on lies. And slowly, hour by hour, 30,000 feet above the sea, a brother and a sister found each other. We drove from the airport straight to the house. My heart was in my throat as we pulled into the driveway. I led Thomas up the path, through the front door, and up the stairs. Mrs. Bell met us at the top. Her eyes were red. She is very weak today, Alice, she whispered. But she is awake. She has been asking for you. I went into the bedroom first. My mother lay against her pillows, small and pale and thin. But when she saw my face, she smiled. You are home, she said. Yes, Mum, I said. I knelt beside her bed and took her hand. I am home, and I did not come alone. I kept my promise. Her eyes searched my face, and then they moved to the doorway. And there, standing in the door, was Thomas, My mother's whole body went still. Her lips parted. Her eyes, which had been so tired, suddenly filled with a light I had never seen before. "Thomas," she breathed. "My Thomas." He crossed the room in 3 steps and fell to his knees beside her bed. He took her frail hand in both of his. "Mum," he said. "Mum, I am here. I am so sorry. I did not know. He told me lies. He told me you did not want me. But I am here now. I found you. I came home." "I never stopped waiting," my mother whispered. She lifted her trembling hand and touched his face, tracing the shape of it, as if she could not believe he was real. "My boy, my beautiful boy, you came home. You came home to me." I stood back by the door and watched my mother and my brother hold each other, and I cried. But they were not sad tears. They were the other kind, the kind that come when something broken is finally made whole again. My mother lived for 3 more weeks. They were, I think, the happiest 3 weeks of her whole life. Thomas did not leave her side. He slept in his old room, in the small bed that was too short for him now, surrounded by his childhood toys. Every morning, he sat with our mother and talked to her. He told her everything, and she listened, and she smiled, and she held his hand. We were a family for the first time in 20 years, and for the last time, we were a whole family. My mother, my brother, and me. 3 people in a small house at the edge of a small town. And in those final weeks, that small house was filled with more love than it had ever known. My mother passed away on a quiet morning in August, with the summer light coming through the window, and both of her children beside her. She was not afraid. She was not alone. She held my hand, and she held Thomas's hand, and she slipped away peacefully with a small smile on her lips. Her last words were to Thomas. "I always kept your room ready," she said. "I always knew you would come home." After the funeral, Thomas and I sat together in the little room at the end of the hall, the room that had been locked for 20 years, the room that had held so much love and so much sorrow. We did not lock it anymore. We opened the curtains and let the sunlight in. We looked at the old drawings on the walls, the house with the red roof, the family of 3 holding hands. "She never gave up on me," Thomas said quietly, holding the worn, brown teddy bear with one missing eye. "No," I said. "She never did." Thomas stayed. He did not go back across the sea. He found a job in our town. He moved into the house, and the 2 of us, the sister and the brother, who had lost each other for 20 years, began to build a life together. Sometimes, in the evenings, I sit in that little room. I look at the photographs, the little boy with the missing tooth, holding a baby in a pink blanket, and I think about my mother and the key she wore around her neck for 20 years, and the promise she never stopped believing in. She locked one room for 20 years. She kept a whole world of love and pain hidden behind a plain white door. And she waited, and she hoped, and she never gave up. And in the end, her son came home. The door is open now. It will stay open. And the love that was locked away for so long fills the whole house, every room, every corner, every day. Because that is what love does. In the end, it waits, it hopes. And no matter how many years pass, no matter how far away, it never truly lets go.